Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so let's come back to this diagram that we've been spending almost a month on and see where we are at it. So, quick overview. So we started with the client having a transaction, sending it to the primary, and then the primary proposed that transaction to everyone. Then everybody do exchange of messages, sharing what the primary have sent them. And then once they're able to form a quorum, then they reach prepared state or a locked state. And at that point, they will begin to share that the message they got, or telling everyone that now they've shared the prepared state or they shared the locked state. So, and that message goes as commit. And once they are able to collect enough commit messages, create a commit quorum, then they reach committed state. And at that point, they inform the client. So that we're kind of already now talked about all the phases. So let's just pause here. Anybody who has questions? So quorum, yes. So everybody, a quorum means at least 12 plus 1 messages. So are you able to see what quorum I'm forming? Are you able to see the messages that I'm receiving? Am I able to see the message you're receiving? No. But as long as you receive 12 plus 1 messages, that will, you can say I have a valid quorum. I mean, of course, they need to have, so for example, in this case, if you get 12 plus 1 messages that's saying that the primary have sent them the same message, it has to be matching, then you form a quorum. So it has to be a sufficient number of matching messages in order to form that quorum. But my collection could be different from yours. Yes. To reach, what's the informed state? To inform the client, or you mean the informed state? Because there's no informed state. So right now we have a prepared state, we have a committed state. Client. Why? Why do we need that? Mm-hmm. So the client can ensure that one of them is non-faulty. So the client can ensure that one has committed. So in this case, we like really listen complexly, and let's say client needs to receive, like, let's say 2F plus 1 messages in for times. So the client to make sure that the message the client receiving is correct. What kind of messages? The message they are exchanging. What? Walk me through that. So when do you send a message to client? So when basically subcommit. Yes. And so the inform is after the beginning. Okay. All right. Yes. We ask prior to, like, originally we only F plus 1. Mm-hmm. In the case I mentioned, if the client receives 2F plus 1, mm-hmm, able to ensure that's the message. I don't know. You tell me. I think that's, like, in that case, it still works. Why? Why would it work? Because I cannot find it. Hmm? No, show me a way. Show me a simple reason why it works. Intuitively, why it works. Why does it work? What's the intuition? Think about the intuition. It's not about a quorum. Think about intuition. So you have to think about, go back, sit down and think about it. I mean, that's a good idea, but go back and think about it. They're in the form of intuition. So you have to go back and read again. Read the material again, read chapter 6 again, and begin to form an intuition. It's a good question, but I want you to go on back and think about that. All right. So, kind of going back again. So what is it that we're getting accomplished in the prepared state? What was it that we were able to conclude at the end of the prepared state? It's got the same message for primary, so you know that there is matching messages or somewhat an agreement, or you could say, well, the primary hasn't lied, or at least there's sufficiently support saying that the primary hasn't lied because their majority are claiming that they've got the same message from the primary. Okay, so what does that give you last time? So the moment we form this quorum, let's say we know primary didn't lie. And what else it tells us once we form a quorum? Honest replica won't change their vote, but what else? There was a property we talked about last time. Uniqueness. What is the uniqueness? What's unique? There is only one unique quorum, meaning. So if I'm R4 and I get a quorum, I reach the prepared state for, let's say, transaction 1. What can I be sure of? So so it's impossible that there is any other replica who will able to receive a quorum, construct a quorum for an alternative transaction, let's say transaction 2. So that's an important property. The moment you actually construct a quorum, in addition to know that, well, the primary was sufficiently well behaving that allows producing 2f+1 matching messages. But I also know once I reach the state, this quorum is unique. There can never be any other quorum for that round that violates the message on which I've prepared. Why? Why is that? Where is that uniqueness property come from? Okay, so let's draw that one more time. That's important. I want to make sure that what we talked about last time, also for the new people, it's clear for them. So in order to construct a quorum, what do I need? I need f+1 good, and to kind of make the worst possible quorum, I could also put f bad 1. And let's say they all receive message 0. So this is a quorum for message 0. Okay. In the worst case, or not in the worst case, so now we could also have another set of, it could also potentially be another set that are good replica who have received message 1. And these bad replica could double vote. So they could also vote for 1. Well, how many do we have here? 12. So in order to construct a quorum, how many do we need? 12+1. So meaning what? I mean, you've already included all of these. These are all there. The only set that is left to pick from is from here. The question is, would these ever join this set? Why not? Because they're not going to double vote. They've already voted 0. They're not going to change their votes and give it 1 now. So this will never be formed. So once a quorum is formed, once a prepare quorum for message M0 is formed, M1 or any other one can never be formed. So this guarantees. So not only, so there's another thing, not only at this stage, I know that the primary was well behaving or primary didn't lie, at least didn't lie to the extent that could have been detected. Not only I know that, but I also know no other messages ever going to be able to be prepared in that round by the same leader. Yes.
And because we assume that game is breakable, what's exactly what the client.
No, I mean, these two are, no, it has nothing to do with the client. So both M0 and.
Like for the,
You mean the colluding node, the one, the malicious one?
yes.
Well, the malicious one, it all be colluding with the primary. All talk to each other. So they could share their private key. So we're not making any restriction. So the primary is in the set. Primary is in the set of the bad nodes. And you can just say they're kind of together. Does that uniqueness, that's uniqueness is important. Uniqueness makes sense. So we, at the end of this phase, we are establishing that the primary was sufficiently well behaving, or the primary didn't lie. At least it didn't lie to the point that could have been detected, because there is enough support saying that the primary have sent them the same message, and the quorum was formed. And the moment the quorum is formed, we're now guaranteeing the uniqueness property. So the prepare phase, what it really ensures is the uniqueness property. So now, what does the next phase do? So if the prepare phase is the uniqueness, what is it that we are gaining with another exchange of messages?
Preservation.
Preservation, okay, so elaborate.
So during the prepare phase, we know that the primary has not lied. We have one message, which is we have one unique quorum. In the second phase, which is the commit phase, what we do is we check with each and every other replica. And we have 12+1 replicas saying that, hey, this is the message that I'm logged on, then that the prepare phase is that the primary has not lied. The common phase is that everybody else confirms that the primary has not lied.
Okay, so think about it, try to say it in 1 or 2 seconds. Think about it how you say it more concisely. That's correct, but you need to say it more concisely. Others.
So each replica knows there are 2m+1 replicas logging, and so each replica can completely inform the message to the client.
No, we're not talking about client right now. We're talking about this phase. What does this phase? This phase is bringing uniqueness. What is this phase is bringing in or offering?
For each replica to know that there are 2m+1 replicas having the same message.
Say it in terms of uniqueness. Try to seek and paraphrase uniqueness. Others. It's good. I want to hear others.
So on the mid phase, I will want each replica to receive. But we know that the majority type replica agree that primary don't lie, and then 2m+1 replica could be enough replica to preserve the preservation ability, because if there are future recovery, they could have at least one replica to prove this.
Okay, nice. Others. Just wanted to get more people expressing. Yes.
By the end, let's say our board is something at the end of the year, only our board knows maybe not by our board knows majority is the same method. And if commit, our board knows that majority knows came to the same conclusion as our board did again. Here's the formation of the same message.
Okay, nice. Others? Anybody else want to take a crack at it? See, say it even in fewer words? Yes.
It's like, you have, like, once they believe that they told them, they would also know, it's just saying that they're going to. They can
What's the point? Why would they want to say that? Why do they need to tell everybody that you're running?
It's just like a final check.
Why do you need a final check?
Well, just in case. I guess like the.
We talked about an example. We did it. I don't want to make them stand up again. That example.
Yeah, like let's say only one.
Which message?
Like during the fair. They won the. on it.
So what happens? Explain it in your case. So you're the one who got the message back. So I'm the primary. I send the same proposal. Let's say I was honest. I send the same proposal to everybody, and you all exchange messages. They prepare, and now what happens?
And then, or I guess it's just.
So what could happen? I'm gonna make you stand. And yeah, you know, all get the graduate student to stand, the undergraduate to stand too. So you all exchange messages. You're the only person who got everybody's preferred message. And you cannot stand because you're prepared. And so you stand. You're ready, you're done. But you don't know what everybody else, everybody's still sitting, they haven't. You've identified in the primary data file. You've identified the uniqueness of the message, but you're the only person. The rest are still sitting, they haven't got enough message. So if you just tell the client you're done, nobody's making progress, they're all gonna try to do recovery, and if the recovery happens, at that moment of recovery, maybe no longer accessible. And they're gonna talk among themselves, they say, did anybody observe the uniqueness form? Did anybody observe the prepared form? Did anybody was locked or prepared? And they're all gonna say no. So you thought it was committed and done, the client thought it was done. Now they're all gonna drop the message. So at this phase, you know that you arrive at the uniqueness property. Since now you know it's unique, since you know that the primary didn't lie, because for it to be unique, that means primary also didn't lie, you get locked to it. By the end of this phase, you now know that the majority are locked. The majority have observed the uniqueness property. The majority have observed that the primary didn't lie. So now it's like half of the classes stand. Now, or the majority of the classes stand. Now, if majority are standing, even if something goes wrong, once we form a quorum, one of these standing people going to be in that recovery quorum. And that's why it's going to be preserved. So the preservation is just basically redundantly getting that you identified as uniqueness, but you're just by yourself. We want to add redundancy. So the preservation means making that conclusion redundant. So in case you're no longer available, there is others who also reach that conclusion. And the commit phase essentially gives us that preservation, but to ensuring that enough people have reached the same conclusion as you did. So this gets us to the uniqueness. This gets us majority have seen the uniqueness or arrived at the uniqueness independently. You can sit down if you like, or stand, it's up to you. You made it short. Last time I made him stand for 50 minutes. All right, questions? Yes?
So say in a scenario, so do you need to, so let's say like something goes wrong. There is no consensus by repair stage by the end of the repair stage.
What's consensus? No quorum, you mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the prepare stage?
Yeah, does that mean that like, let's say you do go before, like, will the process?
Is there a quorum or there's no quorum? Which example?
Let's say there's no more.
Okay, no quorum.
Does that mean we'll still go? If things
No.
are-
You would, yeah, you will stall. If you would only go to this phase once you observe a quorum. Because you're not gonna even enter, I mean, you're not gonna preserve something that you're not sure about. This is make sure that you're sure that the transaction is unique, make sure you're sure that the primary didn't lie. And now once you know that, only then it makes sense to try to preserve it. Because if you don't know any, if you only you got 1/3 of people saying they got the same thing. Well, that's not enough. You're not yet at the stage to say, okay, I'm going to preserve it. Because once you want to make a commitment to the client, you want to make sure that it's preserved, that you will always be able to recover it. And the only way that you can ensure that it can be recovered is to make sure enough replica have independently arrive at the conclusion that it's unique. I mean, maybe there's a way of not necessarily doing it independently, but at least you want to make sure all the replica are aware of it. Yes.
Which stage is update?
Once you're committed. Again, you're not going to try to preserve it unless you're sure about it. Nor are you going to update your ledger or your state until you're sure about it. Of course, you could go ahead and there are variants, kind of try to do things speculatively or optimistically, but those are like optimization. But the baseline is that before you commit to something, before you make the change, first you want to make sure it's correct, make sure it's unique, make sure the primary didn't lie about it, and make sure enough people know about it. Only then you consider it as committed. Only then you're gonna go and change the ledger or update your state or whatever else you need to do, inform the client and so forth. Questions? Yes.
Let's say I stand up, which means, yes, I know the farm is not lying. Yes, I know they keep set up with SWAT, so here's me broadcasting to others that, yep, I did observe this, we're going to the next stage. And then in that moment, let's just say network failure, I did not yet preserve anything because there was no quorum on the commit. So there was no quorum of at least 200 plus 1 plus standing. What happens to me? Like, let's say if I'm standing just by myself.
Yeah.
I just came here and then network goes down.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it's on the scope of this, like, the thing. We do a view chain,
Mm-hmm.
and and do I just now sit down and say, you know what, the message that
You are prepared.
I can prepare?
So you retain that prepared. You're locked.
Okay, so I'm locked. And basically, when this happens, do I then stay here and I continue until others say, I'm happy to do it?
No, you get stuck. I mean, if you don't, let's say you get to the prepared state, but somehow you don't get any of these messages.
Yeah.
And maybe nobody else got your messages. As far as you know, you got prepared and maybe you partitioned. And so you get locked into that. You're locked. What do you think the way we're going to unlock it? No, you can't just time out. You need a proof. Everything we do, it needs a proof. And a proof means a core. For it to be locked, it received a proof, a core, that the majority have endorsed that message. So we didn't just arbitrarily decide to get locked. So we formed a core. So we also need a quorum to get unlocked. So how do we get an unlocked quorum? What other message? Like for we're in the same we're round we're the first round of the consensus. So what do you mean? In that round, the primary sends another message? So primary has sent M1 or M0. Round one. Send M0 round one. So what do you mean by other message? What's the other message? M3 in which round? No, but second round doesn't help me with the first round. That's a different round. I'm stuck in the first round. So I'm stuck here. Now you tell me something else is in round two. How does it help me with the proof of that's what happened in round one? It's kind of in there, but it's not exactly. So because you need a proof. Somehow you need to unlock. Just the fact that the primary said here's another message, you can't just unlock it because that scenario could have been the case that everybody here got locked, but nobody got these messages. So you were all locked. And it is possible somebody also got to the commit state, informed the client. That one person who informed the client is no longer available. You were all locked and so thinking nothing happened. And now if you just release your lock, we get into inconsistency.
So you're saying that like you apply the lock state and you all like walk one person can't.
Yeah, so we all maybe the other extreme point of the same example, he assumed that he's just locked, nobody else is aware of it, but now the question is how to unlock it. But if we just decide just a random timeout or just a random another message I get and I just unlock myself thinking, well, I was the only one, so let me just unlock. But you cannot distinguish it from the other case. And the other case could have been everybody got locked, only one person got to commit, and none of these messages except R4 who got to the commit were delivered. Now everybody's locked. They never heard anything else. One person got committed, tells the client transaction is preserved, done with it. And now everybody sort of times out. And let's say this one is no longer accessible, it's partitioned out. These ones are now time out. Says, well, nothing happened. Let's just drop our lock. But that's wrong because somebody had already reached the commitment. You can't just unlock it. So because there was that timeout, there's no proof. Just because you time out, that's not a proof. Well, that's yours. It's independent. This ledger is not. It's your ledger. It's your copy. It's not that you write in your ledger. Everybody else sees it. Yes, but what you write in yours, it's yours. But you put in your pocket. You write in your notebook. Maybe I also write it in my notebook, but I don't see your notebook and you don't see mine. The only way you and I communicate is through messages. So if you agree that we're all gonna go write down the same thing, but if I'm at this stage, I haven't written anything on my notebook, and you have, nobody else in the room have written anything on their notebook, and no, you're no longer accessible, we're all gonna look at our notebooks as well, there's nothing in there, so nothing happened. It's not a virtual magical ledger that if you write to it, everybody else sees it. That doesn't exist. It's all messages. That's important. It's all communication.
But we need a message like forward. Like I'll know that like yes, I work with the client.
No, this thing is partitioned. It's gone. No, it's no longer accessible. So that's a valid example. Yes.
Is that the client finally knows that let's
That's one replica coverage to come into it.
Client could be malicious too. You can't rely on the client. Just let's simplify it. Client, you can't rely on the client. And then also client, even if it's not malicious, client get the message. This guy's thing is committed. Client gets things committed. Both of them are partitioned. Both of them no longer accessible. That's valid scenario.
Standing up, I'm not excited. At the minute, I just need
But you don't know. Maybe again, everybody else may be in the same position standing. You don't know. So you can't just
the other guy saying that I think that's what I do, and I'm not appending anything to my ledger or like it's not until I receive 12+1. I'm understanding, yeah, I'm standing too. Then I know that the numbers.
yes, but the question was, and that was an important question, when is it that you can sit down and give up? But you can't, just because you haven't seen anything or you haven't received anything, doesn't mean that there wasn't somebody who did receive it. Even though you haven't got anything, maybe the person next to you, everybody's standing, and the next person next to you actually observed that everybody's standing. So he went ahead and committed it, informed the client. Now, he's not accessible, client is not accessible, all of you standing. You're still waiting, it's okay, I'll just let go. You can't just let go without proof. We've been talking about something when we enforced why commit is needed. What is that thing that we keep talking about? There's another core that we keep talking about. What is that core? Uniqueness is a property, not the uniqueness. Say that again. Okay, so what about recovery core? Could the recovery core be a proof? So what happens if you all time out and say, for example, nothing happened? So how does that help the example that we just talked about? So he's standing, so it's going to go to his example. He likes to stand. He's standing, he's locked. And nobody else got anything. The only one who's locked. And so he times out, he says, let's recover. Maybe the leader was faulty or whatever, you always blame the leader. He says, okay, let's change the primary. Let's do recovery. You all time out too, because you're still waiting. None of you have got into the prepare stage. And so you all say, let's give up. And now a primary comes, the next primary. And the next primary forms a core with enough replica saying that nothing was prepared. Nothing was prepared in round one. So 12+1 people, 12+1 replica says nothing was prepared in round one. Okay. So is this useful? Let's say he's not in this for now. Maybe he did send his messages, but primary can just choose any 12+1 messages. The primary can ignore them, that's fine. But the rest of you never got prepared, then 12+1 say you didn't prepare. Is this useful? And that's a form matching, they're all saying the same thing. Is it useful? Is this sufficient for him to unlock himself? Why not? Just send it, everybody's ignoring it.
I'd say it's sufficient for him to unlock, because then he knows the majority either didn't see his message or something happened, so he can like
reliably unlock, knowing that no one else ended up committing. Majority didn't end up committing.
Exactly. Well, nobody could have committed.
Yeah.
Just for it, because out of these 12 plus 1, how many of them are telling the truth? F plus 1 says, I'm gonna make up notation, 0 didn't happen. Put a cross on it. F plus 1 good replica says 0 didn't happen. They weren't prepared. And F faulty replica said 0 did happen. They were prepared. That one loaner says it did happen. And then what else? We have,
Every F bad one saying that.
yeah, so the F bad ones, I put it there.
Yeah, I mean, say that nothing happened.
Yeah, they say nothing happened.
That they say that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. In here, I meant these ones could also be the bad one. These ones could also, they could double vote. So that's why I just said there's F plus 1 good one, because we don't know what the rest. So these F bad one could join this core. And then there is, so we have F plus 1 here. We have F plus 1 here. And what else? I'm missing something. So let me do it inside. Sorry, I'm miscounting something. So we have F plus 1 who said nothing happened.
What does that mean? Let's say that nothing happened if there's only one good one saying that something didn't happen. It's just a question.
So we have F plus 1. And so what's missing here, we have F good ones and we have F bad ones. So we need to account for these. So these are the ones that we need to account for. So let's say already F plus 1 said nothing happened. These are good ones. We have 2F more on this side. Okay. And for example, what could happen? One example is if all of these good ones, let's say all of these good ones also say nothing happened. If all the good ones are also say nothing happened, that's already a unique core. So that means it wouldn't have been possible to form a commit core because 2F plus 1 says good replica said nothing happened. And these guys, even if all of them had said something happened, there's only F of them. So that means nobody could have possibly reached a committed state. So that is sufficient. If he sees this, it is sufficient for him to let go of that lock because it knows it would be impossible for anybody to have reached a committed state.
Yes. But if that recognized not how is it going to get a course one?
It doesn't matter. Everybody else moves on. Everybody says, this is a proof. If there are 2F plus 1 say, we are not prepared, we haven't prepared. If 2F plus 1 say, we haven't prepared, F plus 1 of them are non-faulty, so they're not lying. So that means, okay, that's what I want to say. That's what I wanted to kind of say initially. Since F plus 1 of them, we don't even care what the rest do. Out of this 2F plus 1, F plus 1 of them are good. They said nothing happened. That means everybody else is the size of 2F. And this wouldn't have been sufficient to reach commitment. Even if all of these people, doesn't matter what they do, good or bad, even if all of them had prepared, wouldn't have been sufficient to form a single commit core. If F plus 1, good replica said, if you form a core, that means F plus 1 of them are good. Meaning, when they say no, they haven't prepared, they haven't prepared. Once you remove that, we're only left with 2F. And with 2F, there's not enough power to get to the committed state. So that means nobody could have committed. So that means this is a proof and it's safe to whoever sees this and say it's okay, nothing happened, they can move on. They can say a null. They put a null in round 1. Say nothing can happen round 1, they go to round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5. He would either observe it by the new leader at the same time as everybody else, he would unlock it. But in future, if he sees it, he could still unlock it. But he needs a proof. He needs a proof.
To be clear, the proof is a form of size 2F, right?
Form, yeah, everything is a size of 2 plus 1.
So like, that's why I said I can just mention that. Not staying. Not exactly correspond.
So in other words, if it gets, so maybe make it simpler. Maybe that's a better terminology. If he receives a quorum of people saying we are unlocked, if you receive a quorum saying you are locked, you get to commitment. If you receive a quorum saying 12 plus 1, we are unlocked, this is an unlocked quorum, sufficient for him to let go of his lock. The sufficient proof for him to let go of his lock. Because essentially, 12 plus 1 people saying we haven't locked. And if 12 plus 1 say we haven't locked, it's impossible for that transaction to have been committed. And since it's impossible for that transaction to be committed, then it's okay to let it go.
But he's all unlocking. I think it's the message, right? But it's like, everything did not get message, not get his message.
He didn't get it?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I mean, he's stuck. As long as he's locked, he's stuck.
It's still nothing, so like,
He's stuck. That's okay. He gets stuck. As long as there's 12 plus 1 can form this quorum, these 12 plus 1 could continue the consensus. So you can always keep F people in dark. He's essentially in form of a dark.
in the dark state. Yeah.
He would be in a dark state. Eventually, maybe a good leader. It's eventually the communication will restore. A good leader would help him, or checkpoint that we're going to talk about. So there are other mechanisms that would eventually help him to catch up. But other than that, he's locked, and we want him to be locked because you need a proof to unlock. And so, for example, the hot stuff, the stuff that we talked about, that safe node and stuff, essentially these are the unlocking. The safe node, I mean, I'm just doing a side point. Mhm. Either at some point, he observes a recovery quorum that says it sees this recovery quorum saying that many people weren't, the majority were not locked, so it's safe for you to let go of that lock. Or he observes that everybody have moved on and successfully added many things into their ledger. And all of these people who have moved on and add things to the ledger, they have a hold on what he's locked on. And since it sees enough have moved on, that'd also be a proof for him to let go. But he needs a proof.
Like no quorum is present. So if I'm not a node, I will come to there it is. It's locked. Recovery happens, and then because there's quorum on 2 plus 1 saying nothing happened, can I also conclude that there must have been some quorum, that there is some network instability? Because if I came to a conclusion and there are at least like I received 2 plus 1 of the same message. So I like node 2 plus 1 of the other nodes received it, that there is some network issue.
Okay, so you could, okay, let's say you detect it, and then what do you want to do with it? Because nobody will believe you. So you need enough, you need majority say, for example, that there's something wrong with the network. But then we can't change the network. So even if the network is bad, you just go after the poor primary. You try to change the primary. Of course, it doesn't help changing the primary, but at least the protocol is making some progress. Till eventually all the stars are aligned, primary is good, network is good, things happen.
It's like before the commit state.
Say that again.
It's like before the commit state.
Recovery quorum can be, at any time nodes time out, they're gonna switch to the recovery.
Okay.
And then the recovery you gather, and we're gonna talk about this in more detail. In the recovery, you gather what happened before.
But it's also like the one committed, or did I inform the type? And then like, yeah, other than that, so I can go to the,
Recovery quorum, and if somebody had committed, that means this recovery quorum will definitely have some locked replica in it. And one of those locked replica will ensure that that's not overlooked. If a commit quorum was formed, it's guaranteed one honest replica that was locked will appear in the recovery quorum. That was the whole point. Every quorum intersect on one honest replica. So if a recovery quorum was formed, it's guaranteed to have one honest replica in this quorum that says I'm locked, and that transaction will be preserved.
That's the D2. Over recovery.
12 plus 1. Everything we need 12 plus 1. Any quorum is 12 plus 1. Client is not a quorum. Client is just wanted to make sure that the message is coming from honest replica. And honest replica, well, you get F plus 1 matching. That means one of them is honest. Just not a quorum.